All right, happy Friday. Today we are going to talk about solving root equations. We've been doing roots for a while, either perfect squares or perfect cubes, and then we also estimated them. Make sure you have your calculator with you because, as always, your calculator will be your best friend this year, so please allow it to be your best friend. Here we go. So our learning objective today is that we're going to use square and cube root symbols to represent solutions in the form either x squared equals p or x cubed equals p. So basically we're just going to be giving you some equations that are square roots or cube roots, and you just use your calculator to solve them. And that is 8EE2, which we've been on. So solving equations with square roots. Well, the opposite of squaring is to take the square root. Is to take the square root. And we've been talking about that. Ms. Dupakowski talked about that in the very beginning when we were doing our perfect squares and perfect cubes on our calculator. So when we have solving equations with square roots, first off, we're going to know that it's a square root 1 because it's going to be in the form x squared equals some type of number. So we see that 2, that means it's a square root because the opposite of squaring something is to take the square root. There are kind of steps. I like to do a little bit of procedural. So step 1 is once you have your equation, you're going to place the radical symbol on both sides. So you're just going to place the square root symbol or the square root sign on both sides of the equation. So we're going to place it on both sides. And remember, the square root symbol is just the radical by itself. So we're going to do that on both sides. And then we're actually just going to solve the root in our calculator. So we're going to solve the root with the calculator. So you're just going to put your root into the calculator. We're going to add a plus or minus sign. And the plus or minus is literally just a plus sign, minus sign underneath. So you're going to add the plus or minus sign. And then, as always, I like you to box your answers because anyone can draw a rectangle. Not everyone can draw a beautiful circle. So just box your answers. So just to recap, it's in the form x squared equals some type of number. The opposite of squaring something, so if you square a number, so x squared is to take the square root. So our step 1 is to place the square root on both sides. And then we're going to solve with our calculator. We add the plus or minus sign, and then you just box your answer. So here we go, example 1. So we have m squared equals 169. Our first step is to place the radical over both sides. I know it's a square root because it's the square symbol right here. There's a 2. So I place the radical on the left. I place the radical on the right. So that's step 1. And then when I square root a square, so when I put the radical over this square, the m gets released. So that 2 disappears, and then I just have the square root of 169. I'm going to put this into my calculator by doing second x squared and then typing in 169. When I type in 169 into my calculator after doing second x squared, I do get 13. So the square root of 169 is 13. The last step is that I have to put the plus or minus sign. So I'm going to put my plus minus sign, and then I box my answer. That plus or minus sign is just saying, hey, if I were to put m, we have right here, we say m is 13, positive 13. So if I have m squared equals 169, I can put either positive 13 in, and it would hold true, because 13 times 13 is 169. So that works out. There's a big check mark. Or I can put negative 13 in for m. So again, m squared equals 169. If I put negative 13 in, that's just saying, does negative 13 times negative 13 give you 169? And it does. So that's a big check. So that's all we're doing. If we see this 2, that means we need to take the square root. Example 2, we have x squared equals 144. First step, I know it's a square root, so I just need to place the radical sign over top. When I square root a square, the x gets released, and I just have the square root of 144. When I do second x squared in my calculator, 144, I get x to be 12. The square root of 144 is 12. I add my plus or minus sign and I box my answer. Again, that's just saying that if I were to plug in positive 12 in for x, so 12 squared gives me 144. It does, because 12 times 12 is 144. And then again, does negative 12 squared give me 144? Yes, negative 12 squared is just negative 12 times negative 12. And negative 12, if you put that into your calculator, times negative 12 does give you 144. So that's what that's saying. Okay. Last example, we have m squared equals negative 81. So again, I'm just going to take the square root of both sides. When I take the square root, when I take the square root of a squared number, the m just gets to release, and then I have the square root of negative 81. And so all I have to do is do second x squared, and then type in negative 81. But when I do that, what happens? Second x squared negative 81. I get a domain error. So I got a domain error. That means that I can't do it. The calculator says, nope, not allowed. So all you write right here, if you get domain error, is m equals undefined. Undefined. If you get a domain error, that's because the negative is under the square root, and you cannot do that. I guess that was example 3. So we can fix that in our notes. So that is solving equations with square roots. Next up, we're going to solve equations with cube roots. So the opposite of cubing something is to take the cube root. I know it's going to be a cube root if it has the 3 and then some type of number. So 2 is squaring, 3 is cubing, and it's going to look like a 3, so that's the difference. Your step 1 is, as always, this time we're going to put the cube root symbol, the cube root symbol on both sides. So that's step 1. You just put the cubed root symbol. Remember, the cubed root symbol just has a 3 on the outside of the radical, a tiny, tiny little 3. And then step 2, you're just going to solve the root in your calculator. So solve the cubed root with your calculator. So with your calculator. And then lastly, you just box your answer. Cube roots do not get the plus or minus sign. The plus or minus sign is only for square roots. So every year, I think that's the thing that most kids struggle with, is that they want to put the plus or minus sign on the cube roots as well, but it's only for the square roots. So here we go. Let's do examples. Example 4, we have the cubed root, or m cubed equals 8. I know it's a cubed root because it has this little 3. So I'm going to put the cubed root symbol on the left-hand side and the cubed root symbol on the right-hand side. When I do the cube, when you take the cubed root of something that is cubed, the m just gets to release. So the m gets to be all by itself. And then we have the cubed root of 8. Just a reminder that to put this in your calculator, you hit 3, second, and then the caret button. And then you'll type in 8. And when you get the cubed root of 8, m is just 2. And reminder, you don't do the plus or minus sign, you just box your answer. So that's saying that if I were to plug 2 in for m, so our original equation was m cubed equals 8. So 2 to the third power, does that give me 8? Well, that's just 2 times 2 times 2, which is in fact 8. So it is correct. Example 5, we have the p cubed equals 216. Since it is a 3, I just do the cubed root on both sides. When you take the cubed root of something being cubed, the p just gets to be released. And we just have the cubed root of 216. And a reminder, to put this in your calculator, you hit 3, second, caret, and then type in 216. And when you do that, you get p to be 6. A reminder, no plus or minus sign. You just box your answer. And then I can do a little check. If I plug p, my original equation was p cubed equals 216. I found out that p is 6, so I just plug that in. So does 6 to the third power give me 216? That's just 6 times 6 times 6. Or you can just put 6 caret 3 into your calculator, and you do get 216. Last one, we have cube roots again. I know it's a cubed root because of this 3, therefore I put the cubed root symbol, that's ugly, I'm sorry, on both sides. When I take the cubed root of something being cubed, the x just gets released. And then I have the cubed root of the right-hand side, negative 1331. I'm going to go ahead and put that into my calculator. So, remind me tomorrow. Sorry, guys. It's always something. I do 3 second caret, and then the negative button. Remember, the negative button is underneath the 3. Don't hit the minus sign. So negative 1331. I do not get a domain error. I actually get an answer because you can do the cubed root of a negative number, and it is negative 11. So then I just box my answer. So they just want to know if you can check your answer. Does that give you negative 1331? So we found x to be negative 11. So does negative 11 to the third power give you negative 1331? And you can either type this directly into your calculator, just like with the parentheses and everything, parentheses negative 11, parentheses to the third power, which is just negative 11 times negative 11 times negative 11, which does in fact give you negative 1331. So you're good. All right, so just things to remember: if it has an exponent of 2, it's square rooting. If it has an exponent of 3, it's cube rooting. And then square roots get the plus or minus sign in the answer. Cube roots do not. And then just box your final answer. That's all we're doing. Everything can be put into your calculator. If you have any questions, email me or myself or Ms. Dupikowski. And other than that, you just have some problems to answer for today. Thanks, guys.